Hey guys, Thomas Jr. here, aka Mustached, and welcome back to the month of horror reviews. Alright, this time we're going to be checking out the movie Guilt. And if you end up enjoying this review, then consider joining my Patreon. That'll be the second link in the description below. Any donations are desperately needed, and there will be more information at the end of the review. So, I check this movie out. I think that the horror genre doesn't really quite fit this movie necessarily. So I do think that this is a little bit of a misstep in that direction, but I did enjoy the movie, so I'm still going to cover it regardless. Anyways, we start with this movie seeing this man delivering to a house to a woman named Jess. And this guy is named Adam, and he goes around fixing her stuff. And she knows, and eventually reveals that she knows that he did a previous crime, and that includes child molestation. So she tortures him for a little bit and then kills him and drags him into the woods and buries him. And that is our introduction to Jess. So she is a vigilante who takes out people who are been committed for that particular crime, being molestation and getting caught in the act, and getting out too early. We cut to this other woman, this blonde woman, very briefly, and Jess, we cut to her after the fact, and she sees some young man running away, and she's a little bit confused by it. But as she returns home, we see that she has a board filled with her future victims. While we cut away to the police, who play the second role in this movie, Swan, who is trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And she starts to do a little bit of her own research. So anyways, Jess calls her sister, Charlie, who starts to follow her next potential victim, victim named Grace, this other woman. So Jess briefly talks to Charlie at this little restaurant and begins tailing Grace after the fact, trying to get more and more info, trying to snoop in on her, trying to talk to her directly, but she gets interrupted by this other woman named Christy. So anyways, Jess is watching the news as she returns home, and she discovers a new abuser has been discovered. So she goes to this community of people who want to move child abusers from their area. And she gets a little bit of more information about this person that has just been on the news. So she goes around with a bat in hand, and she starts to stalk her new victim, and as he approaches her, he passes her by, she bats him away, and then brings him to this little insulated, empty location and promptly kills him too. Thus, Jess takes a shower, trying to get all the blood off of her. So, Grace arrives to her workplace. She works as a psychologist, Jess does, and Jess is a little bit concerned about that. Meanwhile, the police officer, Swan, visits the community leader of that community project I was talking about, like, oh, we want this person out. And he mentions Jess by the alias name she used when she got there, Nancy. However, Jess bumps into Charlie on purpose, not Charlie, Grace on purpose, trying to get even more info on her. and takes, uh, after bumping into her when she has the time alone, she takes her down and holds her captive. So, after getting her newest victim, Jess learns about this young boy who we saw very briefly at the beginning of the movie. He comes back and tells Jess that he had lied about this child abuse victim. And we see a flashback of Jess taking out this guy. So she took someone out who was apparently innocent. And that's where the name of the movie Guilt comes from. She had wrongly went after vigilantilizing pedophiles and went after one that wasn't one. So Jess, in her resolve, even after the guilt is weighing over her, still goes to try to figure out a little bit more about Grace. She's trying to figure out what she's going to do. She's trying to very carefully listen to what she's saying. And she learns later that the young man who lied to her killed himself. She couldn't live with the guilt as well. So Grace fights back against Jess, and she's trying to get out of her situation, but Jess does not want anything to do with that, so she points the gun at Grace and tells her what to do, telling her to put a little chokehold around herself, or a little it's like a noose. So she chokes out Grace, deciding that after hearing out her information, she is dead set on her helping another pedophile in a trafficking situation, ferrying over, I think it was like 70 children or something, or higher. So yeah, her resolve in her ways prevailed there. Thus, Jess drives off, and the co-worker of Jess finds her book, which has all of her doodlings and all of her plans of attack. But Jess manages to grab the book, and the co-worker calls the police. So we see that some of the cops are checking around one of her last locations, and she leaves her book there at one of the locations. All the while, she calls her sister to tell her that she loves her, and she writes her last note to leave to the police as they move in, and Jess sees them moving in on the wrong location. So she set up the police so she could have her escape, and she rides off, and that's the end of the movie. I actually ended up enjoying this movie. It was really interesting to see a character which, when we're introduced to them, we are immediately rooting for the character because of what she is trying to do. She's trying to rid the world of one of the cruelest crimes you can commit in the world. And that's what we see for the first two, and then she's potentially moving in on her third. And then we learn that one of the people that she took down, apparently it might have been her first attempt at, achieving justice, ended up being someone who is innocent. I do think that that was the right call in terms of a timeline. If we had learned that that was her methodology from the start, I don't think we would have been rooting for her at the start of the movie, if that makes any sense. Because we would have thought, oh, she took out an innocent person at the beginning of the movie, that makes her the bad guy immediately. But no, we learn that in the middle of the movie, and what we see of her first is the act of getting, being this vigilante, and this proper vigilante, doing the right thing, uh, just not under any, proper law. Uh, so I do think that that was the right call in terms of setting up this character properly so that we're following her, we're believing in what she's doing, and then sliding in this piece of information that makes us go, oh no, she actually fucked up at one point. But her resolve remains true, and she is able to move on in her own way. Uh, I actually really like that. It makes her an interesting character in that way because of the way it's presented. The way it's executed is very smart. So I actually really enjoyed this movie. I think it's pretty solid, and I don't think that the score I saw on the whatever it was on the thing, it was like a 4 out of 10 when I was looking at the score. I don't think this is a 4 out of 10 in the slightest. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it's an objectively good movie. I would actually argue that it's a 7 out of 10. And if you have not checked out this movie, give it a shot, see for yourself. And that's my review of the movie Guilt. So if you ended up enjoying this review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head you over to my Discord server, the other to my Patreon page. Any donations are desperately needed, and until next time everyone, bye-bye.